and Prince Harry is sitting on a documentary with Hugh Grant.
What I can't see is why and how he thought that he could get a court to award him the ability to pay for security, because that's the two-tier society we can't have.
Hi all, Kinsey Schofield here, and I am with my dear friend Richard Fitzwilliams. You are a PR genius and one of my favorite royal commentators. You're so thorough. I mean, you're quick as a whip, and I love just all of the historical knowledge. Every time I talk to you, you can throw it back to 20 whatever, and I feel so much smarter every time I talk to you. The gift that keeps on giving, Prince Harry. He hates the press, yet he's sitting down for another interview. And of course, the first headlines we're seeing from this ITV interview are that Prince Harry's disappointed that his family, the royal family, aren't joining him in his fight against the tabloid media. I'd love your first reaction when you saw that lower third, when you saw that headline come up on your computer. Did you instinctually say, are you in delusion land? Why? When did you not get the memo that we don't trust you anymore?
Now, that actually sums up the situation. I mean, I think that one of the extraordinary things about the documentary that's being broadcast tonight, I've seen a bit of it, in that includes Prince Harry, which they released early. I think it's quite amazing that he is talking about the rift in the royal family and what partly, conceivably largely, caused it, different attitudes towards the media. The fact that he's bringing this up now, when two members of the royal family are, as we all know, seriously ill. Now, this is quite extraordinary, because he knows that tonight's documentary is going to get a lot of publicity because of it. But on the other hand, if he's serious in any sense, and one does wonder, because the last time he was here, he and his father didn't see each other for whatever reason, you wonder. I think that there's something very, very ruthless about him. I mean, he has said that it's his life's work. He wants to reform the British press, and we know he's won a case, and he compares this to the David and Goliath and the monumental victory and so forth. There's no doubt he was in the witness box. I think it was 8 hours. The first royal to bar Princess Anne and an incident regarding one of her dogs, since Edward VII, when Prince of Wales in 1891. Now, clearly, it is the policy of the royal family, for very good reasons, to keep out of the courts. It's essential. Firstly, you never know what's going to come up. Secondly, it's perfectly obvious you're going to get wall-to-wall attention on matters that you might not wish light shed on. It depends what the case would be about. Harry wants it both ways. He wants to remain a royal, of course, which he always will. But on the other hand, he doesn't want the responsibilities that went with being a senior working royal, nor did Meghan, because they only lasted something. Well, they announced stepping back, only to step down, of course, it's a year and a half. Now, that isn't service. I refer, of course, to a recent award that he won, but very controversially. I thought that this was extraordinarily ill-timed, because it's again showing, it's again putting the spotlight on the royal rift at a time when, putting it mildly, it's not helpful. I think, however, so far as Harry's purposes is concerned, it does, because more people will watch tonight because they've read this and they know he's going to be talking about it. There are others involved, of course, and there are future court cases coming up. And so he may well appear again in the witness box, and this too will draw enormous attention. But also, I note again, when he brought the Princess of Wales up. Of course, he's devoted to his mother and naturally sees the best side of her. But it was never proven that she was bugged. Indeed, this has been a matter of speculation over the years. But we do know that tragically and fatally, after her divorce, she refused police protection, and I fear it had very, very tragic consequences. Lord Stevens, who conducted the Operation Paget inquiry into Diana's death, he was certain that had she thought or decided differently, there would have been a very different outcome. The police, where policemen would not have, police protection would not have allowed her to get into that car, and they would have had seatbelts if in the event of them so doing. But there's no question that Harry will never put himself in the position of answering difficult questions. He doesn't like it. Remember Anderson Cooper asking him why he and Meghan kept titles?
Yeah, exactly. He was so defiant when he was like, what does it matter? What does it matter? I mean, he was not going to give Anderson Cooper an inch there. You know, I find it really interesting and compelling that you question whether or not Prince Harry is ruthless, because my first instinct, and I this is probably rude, my first instinct is stupidity, because as you just said, Prince Harry was all over the place. Significant sound bites of this interview, you know, in the days and the hours leading up to this interview, that was their promotional meat. That was the meatiest part that they had. They want us all to tune in. So they slam the most salacious question, you know, pitting Prince Harry in a corner, asking him about his family. They use those sound bites to generate this buzz and this hype so that we all sit down and watch this interview. At what point do you not understand that you're being used? That somebody is, maybe in ITV's case, actually ruthlessly using you, your name, your brand, your presence, the interest in the clickbait in you. I feel like Prince Harry has the power to say to whoever he sits down with, don't ask me about my family. My family is off the table. I'm going to sit down with you. I'm going to give you this exclusive chat, and millions of people around the world are going to then know your name and watch this program because I'm giving you access to me. But I do not want you to ask me about my ill father. I don't want you to ask me about my ill sister-in-law. And I definitely don't want you to ask me about my relationship between my brother and I. He has the power to do that, Richard. Why does he allow himself to me, this is a stumble. To me, that journalist got the sound she needed, but it's not beneficial to Prince Harry. It's not beneficial to his cause.
I believe that you're right. I don't think it's beneficial to his cause in the sense that, firstly, in the United States, as you know, his popularity, his and Meghan's, has definitely gone down, although it does vary according to which polls you look at. And also in Britain, it's fearsomely low. There's no doubt about that, but I can't help feeling, you mentioned this business of, you know, we were surprised that this occurred, that he's allowed matters dealing with his family to be talked about and so forth. Is it stupid? I was wondering whether, I mean, parts of Spare seemed to me the purest stupidity. You had the issue dealing with experimenting with drugs and the fact that that caused there to be questions about his visa. It was totally unnecessary to go into that sort of detail, and certainly to give one of the interviews with a very controversial figure who had odd views in that regard, or very controversial views. Then again, we think telling the number of Taliban he took out in his second tour of duty in Afghanistan. I mean, military people don't do that. And then again, for the comic relief, if we need penile frostbite and how he lost his virginity. So I don't think he took advice. He said, remember, that of course, that he took 400 pages out. Heaven preserve us. I mean, if he took pages out that would have caused even more trouble, and that got him evicted from, and Meghan evicted from Frogmore because of attacks on Queen Camilla, particularly in interviews. It's unbelievable what was in there originally. So who is advising him? Who do you think is actually giving him advice? What advice is he taking? And what input is Meghan having in all this?
I think you just answered your question, because they do seem so isolated, not to trust anyone, not to even trust the people that they've hired to help them navigate their careers and their, professional pursuits, that they kind of turn to each other and they rile each other up. And I have felt for a very long time that it's up against us against the world when it comes to Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, and that they both just take no responsibility and just think that it's always someone else's fault and that they do no wrong. I want to ask you specifically about this quote. Prince Harry says, "I've made it very clear that this is something that needs to be done. It would be nice if we did it as a family. I believe that from a service standpoint, and when you're in a public role, these are the things that we should be doing for the greater good. I'm doing this for my reasons." From a service standpoint, it almost sounds like he's being critical of the royal family, saying, well, really, if you were doing, if this was your life of service, you would be stepping up here with me. I have a hard time with that. Prince William has laid out an entire step-by-step tangible plan about how he hopes to eradicate homelessness over the next the next decade or so. Every year, Prince William is handing thousands of, if not millions of dollars to people that are bringing ideas to him about, through Earthshot, how they can change the world and how they can improve the environment. That's helping a bigger group of people. And Prince Harry is sitting on a documentary with Hugh Grant talking about how celebrities have been negatively affected by the media. It's just, to me, it doesn't balance out. It's not even, am I being too harsh?
I'd say, firstly, of course, the issues dealt with in the program. I mean, I haven't seen the whole program, but we have a pretty good idea of what it's going to be discussing. And indeed, Hugh Grant has long campaigned on these issues. And there's no doubt that issues dealing with the media have been very, very controversial here. There was the Leveson inquiry, which was supposed to be in two parts, but the second part was jettisoned by it never actually occurred by the last Conservative government. And I think that there's not the feeling that this will be revived. But where various court cases could go is another issue. I think, however, that there's no doubt that was an attack, and not a very coded attack, on the royal family and the way it's conducting affairs. Now is no time for such attacks, nor is it, or should it be, any business of Harry and Meghan, who monetized their connections so, well, ruthlessly, I'd say. And also, quite frankly, what we've also seen is the fact that they never answer any questions. For example, on the Oprah interview, someone could ask, were you really married twice? Did your children never get the titles? All of this was rubbish, of course. But the trouble is, I do blame them for a lot of the problems, and there are serious problems with the popularity or lack of it, the monarchy among young people here, especially the 18 to 24-year-old group. And it's among that group that Harry and Meghan have quite high ratings. So there is this, they're playing a game. And this is a pretty brutal game, because it's very difficult for the royals to hit back, both at the moment, and it always was, and they made Queen Elizabeth's last years very problematic in many ways, of course. But there's no doubt that this trailer that we're discussing, it is absolutely ideal for ITV, as you've said, but it shows he is not letting up, because it had been some time since his last attack on the royal family, and he knew that this would cause more than ripples, and he's now given one of the reasons for the rift. I'm surprised that he didn't discuss it more openly since he brought it up. I mean, that's the trouble. We may get this. We could get a memoir. We could get the second part of Spare. We could get anything. Get a memoir from Meghan. So this is not encouraging, and certainly not at this time, and certainly not for somebody who has a project such as Invictus, which is so important, and I mean Sentibale, Lesotho, Well Child, but all of those were before he was married. So what's he done since to get all these?
Since he's become the litigating prince, since he's really just been, we've seen him, that's really the only new pursuit, is taking on the media. And when you were just talking earlier, when you answered me, thank you for being so kind in your answer. You're right. No one deserves to have their privacy invaded, and we will see more of what the details they go into in this ITV documentary. No one deserves that, but it's hard for me to listen to Prince Harry describe it as a David versus Goliath situation when it is the elite that is he's taking on, with a group of his celebrity friends, the media, and that's not necessarily something that a normal person is going to relate to. That's not something that a normal person that is worrying about paying their rent, or how much gas prices are, or how they're going to afford groceries this week for their family. It's I feel like the royal family, while they have their polo matches and while they have their beautiful ceremonies, at the end of the day, we do see them with the Early Years Project, with Homeward. We see them focus on real individuals and how they can improve the lives of the little people. And I think that is so important. So it frustrates me when I feel like my interpretation is I'm seeing Prince Harry say he's more courageous. He has the guts. He's doing something that the King and the Prince of Wales, Prince William, they're not worrying about it, or they're not doing it, because Prince Harry's the one that's going to take, he's slaying the dragons. I guess that is my biggest issue with the whole thing. It's just, you're not on our level, Prince Harry, settle down. And another point you made is I just feel like he's stuck in the past. These types of interviews that keep coming up, talk to me about the future. What are you excited about? What makes you happy? What are you looking forward to? Because all we hear from Prince Harry is about his mother, and how he feels like he's been, victimized in some way, shape, or form. And at what point are you going to go from really the victim to, hey, I survived and my life is great, and I'm a blessed man with a beautiful family and $1 million mansion in Montecito?
Well, I think, again, you've touched on an important point there, because it's part of this, I think, is the way Harry actually sees things. And sometimes it simply doesn't make sense. For example, when he was here last, and he and King Charles, we didn't happen to meet, this report that the king offered a palace for him to stay in, and he chose a hotel. That's quite extraordinary. It really is. It shows the most bizarre sense of priorities. The other thing, of
Especially
course,
when security is your concern. That
absolutely, and this is what I'm just coming to, the fact that you mentioned double standards. Well, fair enough, you could argue whether or not, and I do find it a persuasive argument, that he is a VIP because the world knows who he is. There are right-wing extremists out there. There are Taliban out there, or Islamists who might not appreciate his number calling on the number of people killed, and which he shouldn't have mentioned, and so forth. I do see a security problem when it comes, for example, to issues. He's haunted, as you said, by the death of his mother. But the facts are, he simply thought, having stepped down and knowing that he'd lose automatic security for his family. I can see him wanting to get that, and I can see why. What I can't see is why and how he thought that he could get a court to award him the ability to pay for security, because that's the two-tier society we can't have. You have the rich could buy the police or hire them, and of course the poor couldn't.
No, that is, I had never ever thought about it that way. I just knew it was against the rules. And I thought, okay, well, it's against the rules. And so that is interesting to me. Do you think that, I honestly know the answer to this, but do you think that the royal family will be tuning in to this documentary? Do you think there's any curiosity there?
I'm very sure that they will make sure that their staff do, because you simply have to, I hate to use this phrase, I'm saddened to use it, know what the enemy is thinking.
Ooh, there's the quote right there, Richard. I mean, I wish that Prince Harry would be a little bit more, I mean, we always joke in the media and say, I wonder what he's up to. What is he doing over there in Montecito? What's he doing in his mansion? But anytime we do see him, he's sitting down with the same entity that he says he loathes. He says he hates the media, but he clearly, Richard, he needs them. He needs.
Oh, definitely. That point is absolute. Oprah, Netflix, and the whole contract with Netflix, the Harry and Meghan, whether from the ridiculous curtsy to the attacks on the Commonwealth, a spare, which after all was in the public domain. Oh, absolutely. And not to mention the endless interviews. I mean, if you counted them all. I mean, it's a complete double standard. They use the media when they want it. And of course, South Park sent them up wonderfully.
Exactly. And I had said something to you off camera, and I just briefly wanted to make the point and get your reaction on it. It's interesting to me that we didn't hear really anything. Well, we did. I believe he released a brief statement, but we really had like fists swinging from Prince William after the investigation about Martin Bashir's interview with Princess Diana. This is just a few years ago. Prince William held a press conference and said, please put it in the vault. Please put this interview in the vault. My mother was manipulated into this interview. And he was relieved that there finally was proof that, because there had been whispers forever, but now there was this tangible evidence that there were documents that were photoshopped basically, so that Princess Diana felt like people were out to get her, that worked for her. They were spying on her. And these were fake documents that were presented to her to ensure that she would sit down with Martin Bashir for an interview. Prince William comes out and says, I never want to see that interview again. That's the result of terrifying my mother. That's the result of manipulating a woman through fear. Prince Harry wrote something, I believe, that was just like, thank you for the investigation, BBC. But he wasn't as aggressive as Prince William. And then we see that same interview that Prince William asked to be put away, shelved forever. Not only did we see it played out on The Crown, Netflix, Prince Harry's employer, but we also saw Prince Harry use some of that footage in his Netflix documentary. There has to be so much hurt and betrayal between these two that are clearly just no longer on the same wavelength.
Not on the same wavelength, but the whole idea that they were once inseparable. I mean, I think Spare largely exploited that because of the bitterness in the pages. It was obvious what it meant before it came out, and heaven knows what's in the 400 pages that were cut. But I mean, to have William's attack allegedly, I mean, you've got your headline and then you've got your audience. What hasn't happened 6 months to a year is a paperback edition of Spare, and that, if it included extra information, if it comes out, I mean, that's the sort of thing that should not happen. Definitely not now, but who knows whether it will or not.
Right, absolutely. Richard Fitzwilliams, thank you so much for talking to me today. I want to encourage my audience to follow you on Instagram, follow your adventures. You're always in beautiful places, looking at beautiful artwork, experiencing wonderful things. So Richard Fitzwilliams, follow him on Instagram, follow him on Twitter. He's very active. I'm so grateful for your time today, and thank you for spending your evening with me.
No, been a joy, Kinsey, any time, and I'm looking forward to seeing you back here soon because that would be fantastic. It's our loss. You're across the pond.
Thank you so much. Agree, disagree with this? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Kinsey Schofield. Oh, and make sure you like, subscribe, and send this video to a friend. Bye.